Hi, I am here today and so excited to be with Chris Berry. He is a certified elder law attorney and he's based in Brighton, Michigan, right near us. So, welcome, Chris. And I'm so excited to be talking to you today. We had a little pre chat and we're talking about how tough it's been for all of our grandparents and our loved ones who are currently in assisted living or senior communities, and then how we can't wait to hug them and get fully vaccinated so that we can be with them more.
Sure. Yeah.
But I wanted to share and have you share with everyone some of the things that we can do, even if we can't be with our loved ones. We have certain things we can take care of for them and show our care for them. So, can you
Sure.
share what can we do right now for our elders?
Yeah. And it's an amazing point that a lot of my families are struggling with right now with the pandemic and everything going on. Uh, we were talking about this before, but I have one family right now that it's been about a year and a half where her husband had to go into an assisted living because of medical conditions. This was prior to the pandemic. She has not seen him without a window between the two of them in over a year and a half.
And they've been
And
married
they've been
how
married,
long?
yeah, they've been married over 40 years. So can you imagine having a partner where you're holding their hand every day, but you haven't been able to have just that
Yes,
touch for a year and a half? This
it's
pandemic, it's been
isolating.
yeah, this pandemic, it's a health issue that's become a financial issue. And now we see it as a mental health issue. And it just breaks my heart. So there's certain things that from a legal perspective, we should have in place or we should be doing for our loved ones who are having to go into independent living or assisted living or nursing home, trying to make that situation as easy as possible to navigate, because already it's stressful enough, but then with the pandemic and everything else, it's like an added level of stress. So really from a legal perspective, there's three key documents that you should have in place if you have a loved one that might be transitioning from living at home to bringing in home care, or living at home to moving into an assisted living, or living at home to needing nursing home care. So there's three key legal documents that everyone really should have in place.
Okay.
The first one is a financial power of attorney. So this is a document that appoints someone to be able to write checks, pay your bills, etc., if you're unable to or if you're unwilling to. Okay. So being able to pay for that assisted living, to be able to access IRA money to pay for it, or to write checks, that's that financial power of attorney.
Okay.
The second key document that everyone should have is a medical power of attorney. So this is a document that appoints someone to make medical decisions if you're unable to. Included with this and the financial power of attorney is getting access to medical information, having doctors, having the authority to share information. And then also part of this medical power of attorney, it sounds kind of morbid, but to think about end of life decision making.
Right.
So I don't know if you're familiar with a woman. Her name was Terry Schiavo. She was down in Florida a number of years ago. She was in a vegetative state. Her husband wanted to remove her from life support. Her family wanted her to remain on life support. It became a big court battle that lasted 8 years. All of that could have been avoided had Terry Schiavo had this medical power of attorney appointing her spouse or family to be able to make medical decisions. So
Mm.
that's the second key document, having that financial power of attorney, the medical power of attorney. And then the third thing, and this is really where certified elder law attorneys are helpful, because most estate planning attorneys, they're focused on what happens when you die.
Right.
Certified elder law attorneys are focused not so much on that, but also what happens if you continue to live. So the third key document is what's called a personal care plan, a personal care plan. So we have a financial power of attorney, a medical power of attorney. Third, we have a personal care plan. And if the medical power of attorney gives end of life decision making, the personal care plan gives long-term care decision making. So do you want to be kept at home as long as possible? Do you want to see family, not see family? Certain religious views you have, certain books you like to read, certain music you like to listen to, certain foods you like or don't like. Like, for example, when I was growing up, my parents gave me 3 foods that I didn't have to eat. Everything else I had to eat. I couldn't complain about it. And those 3 foods were tomatoes, onions, and tuna fish. And I came around on the onions and tuna fish. Like my wife makes a killer tuna salad these days,
Yeah.
but I still hate tomatoes. Like I cannot stand tomatoes. If I have a raw tomato on my hamburger, it ruins the whole hamburger for me. So even though I love chili, I like salsa, I like hot sauce, I like ketchup, I just cannot stand tomatoes. But so my personal care plan says I don't want tomatoes, you know?
Right.
And it sounds silly, but we don't go from being healthy to completely incapacitated. We go through this aging process. And so we think this personal care plan document is important to give to our financial power of attorney, our medical power of attorney, our caregivers. Like if we want tea every day at 2:00, that's something that's our habit. That makes us comfortable. And
Yeah.
so everyone should know that. And that's what's captured in that personal care plan document. So when we have a loved one going into independent living, assisted living, nursing home care, one of the most important things we can do for them is create the rule book of what that will look like. And
Right.
so that rule book is going to be that financial power of attorney, that medical power of attorney, and that personal care plan. Those are the 3 most important documents. We call those disability documents, where if we do have a loved one who needs nursing home care or is going to transition into assisted living, we want to make sure we have those in place.
Chris, I think something that just blew my mind was the personal care plan because my
Yeah.
in-laws recently moved into a community in Ann
Mhm.
Arbor. And my
Yeah.
mother-in-law was trying to get situated there. And she said to my husband one day, "There's no food here that I can eat." And he said,
Right?
"What
Yeah.
in the world are you even talking about?" Well, she
Yeah.
has some certain aversions, like you're talking about, et cetera. And they ended up, the social worker at the senior community sent up the nutritionist to speak to my mother in law, and they
Yeah.
worked out a plan. But with your tool, this would have all been averted. We wouldn't have to have such upset.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thank you
And
for bringing
again,
this up.
yeah, this is really the difference between working with an estate planning attorney who's planning just for what happens when you pass away versus working with an elder law attorney, which is more concerned about what happens if you don't and you go through this aging process. And like for me, music is really important. Like I always have music going when I'm brushing my teeth, and there's certain music I like and don't like. Like my daughter, she puts on music and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like nails on a chalkboard, right? And
Right.
so it creates emotions, and these are things that make us us. And so
Yes.
we think it's important to capture this, especially as we go through this long-term care journey.
All right. One last question before we sign off. And that is if you had to rank your number one album that would be on your playlist and on your personal care plan, what would it be?
All right. So I have some eclectic music tastes, and it ranges from gangster rap, which is weird,
Yeah.
versus what I grew up on is like classic rock and like psychedelic rock. Like I don't tell people this, but I actually have a Grateful Dead tattoo on my ankle.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. So I'm kind of a closet hippie.
Yes.
But if I had to choose one album, and I've asked people about this,
Yeah.
if I was on a desert island and I had one album to choose, it would be the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore. It's a 2-disc CD set, and there's a 28-minute version of the Whipping Post, which is one of my favorite jam band songs. So
Oh my God.
uh,
I
give
love
me the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore, and I'm a happy man.
All right. Well, this is excellent information. And I see you maximized because it's a 2-disc set.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
yes,
appreciate that. All
yeah.
right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much.